Before we get into the topic of the day, which is preparing the industry for the next generation, for those of you who don't know much about Disguise, just a really brief intro. And I don't think there's going to be audio, so don't get too disappointed. If there's any musical talent in the room, you can make some noises. But Disguise has been an industry leader in media tech for the last 20 years. I've been hearing amazing stories, talking to some of you already today and last night about your experience with Disguise. I met Pablo, who had one of the very first dongles 20 years ago, and I think still has it probably somewhere, and just the amazing history that Disguise has brought to this industry as a partner. We power amongst the world's biggest, most amazing shows, immersive experiences, broadcast stages, virtual productions. You can see some of the examples here. And obviously we couldn't do this alone, and we're so grateful for the partnership with all of you in this room and all of you who are not to make this happen. I'm gonna just skip ahead since we're already tight on time. But the topic for today is about the next generation of talent. And I think it's really relevant because we are in a new era of visual experience. And to deliver upon that innovation and keep changing this era and growing into the next generation of technology, we need next-gen talent. And we need to make sure we're getting that next Gen Z audience and users ready for what we're embarking on in this world that we live in live experiences. The shows are getting bigger and more spectacular than ever before. Audience expectations have changed as a result. No longer is this just a simple live event. We're talking about completely immersive live shows. And that the creativity and the technology coming together, allowing artists to dream even bigger than before and connect with their audiences in meaningful ways. And this is Adele's residency in Munich last year that I had the lucky fortune to attend. And I remember at the time, like there's tens of thousands of people there, but you're connected with the artist so deeply because of the technology. You feel like you have a very intimate moment in a show. And those things weren't possible before. So connecting with audiences has just become such a part of our role. And it's not just about live, and a lot of us in this room, and Disguise in particular, our roots are in live theater, live concerts, but the immersive experience market is growing exponentially, and it's growing 16% year on year, which is taking that concept into fixed installations and whatnot. And what's happened is it's turned buildings and built environments into canvases, allowing creatives to dream bigger, allowing technologists to find new amazing ways to use software and hardware and their ideas and bring them to life in unimaginable ways that we probably didn't think about even 5-10 years ago. What's pretty cool to see is architecture is now also changing, and we're working on a lot of projects where technology is driving the architect's strategy. It's not really an afterthought, it's actually the driving force behind a new building design, and some of these are pretty amazing concepts that are proof of that shift in the framework of how architects are looking at partnering with our industry. And brands also, brands big and small, are wanting to engage and inspire audiences with technology and creativity at an unprecedented scale and speed. Filmmakers, I know we've sort of gotten to the new normal with VP post-COVID, but filmmakers are now really integrating that VP tool set into their productions and are using this technology in new ways as well. And we are in New York City. A lot of broadcasters are based here. And what they're considering is finally that shift from green screen into full XR, and to making sure that they're evolving their studios and their strategy so that they're connecting with the next generation of audiences in the same way. And of course, generative AI is changing everything and at pace. It would go without saying. So we all know that the collaboration between tech and creative has never been more important than, and this is creating new roles and new opportunities within our industry. And it's forcing a lot of us in this room, be it educators, operators, producers, business owners, to be thinking not just about the future of the technology, but the future of our workforce. Because next-gen tech needs next-gen teams. And the stats are pretty amazing. It's a bit of a wake-up call. So did you know that by 2030, 50% of the workforce in our industry will be under the age of 30? It's pretty amazing. And according to a study with Deloitte recently, 42% of Gen Zers are seeking values-driven employment, which means they seek meaning, mental well-being, flexibility, and ethical alignment in their jobs, not just a paycheck. And this flexibility also extends to switching employers. It's amazing to me to see that Gen Z employees might change jobs up to 10 times between the ages of 18 and 34. So long hours, unsafe working conditions, hierarchical, old school workplace cultures are seen as unsustainable and unacceptable. So what this generation is seeking in work and what they reject and decide to move on from is likely to have a profound and lasting impact on the workplace. Educators play a vital role, and we're lucky to partner with a lot of educators at Disguise. But a lot of education institutions have been investing in the future. They've seen this coming. They're preparing the technology to make sure that their own studios are ready, and they're upskilling their students with VP, XR, mixed media reality. But they're also under increasing pressure to make sure that students are not just graduating with the theory, they're graduating with the practical skills that lead directly to employment or placements. But our industry also needs to adapt. You know, there are roles today that didn't exist 10 years ago. So a lot of the experience design or VP soups or a lot of the roles that I know probably some of you are hiring for are evolving. They just didn't exist. And I think we've been really good at making sure we're preparing for those new roles, but we have to equally think about how we're preparing our work environments for this next generation. I think we need to seriously adapt in other ways. We need to rethink the work structure. So traditional freelance, gig-based, or always-on models that I know a lot of people wear with pride and we're in the trenches, that might actually deter some younger talent from those, seeking the stability, the balance, and those growth pathways. They're looking for different things. We need to prioritize well-being and safety. So mental health support, fair scheduling, and safe working conditions are essential to attract the Gen Zers. And pathways and purpose. We have to offer clear career development routes, mentoring, and practical skills and training to show that technical roles are sustainable and that there are long career paths ahead of them. And we also really importantly need to focus on culture. We need to make a more concerted effort towards an inclusive, diverse, and collaborative backstage culture where everyone feels welcomed and valued. So the good news is, as an industry, we've been really good at adapting and evolving. So think about the last 45 years and how we've completely transformed the audience experience with advancements in technology that have become available. So we're always really good at pushing forward technological progress. So we should be able to adapt and evolve to the rapid pace of changing workforce needs, their wants, their skills. So I believe that is the next acceleration, that creativity, technology, and a future-ready workforce. And I think this is our opportunity and also probably our challenge as an industry. Here at Disguise, we believe we have a responsibility as industry leaders to be not just saying these things, but also changing ourselves. And we're doing our best to adapt ourselves. And a few of the things that we're doing is making sure that we're working with our partners and our clients to empower those future creatives, those programmers, those operators towards new technology and new workflows. We're aiming to make our products also more accessible. So we launched a product earlier this year called X1, which is the first time we decoupled our designer software from our hardware in a single 4K output dongle. And we're doing more and more around thinking about how we put our products in the hands of early career students, people who might be just doing 1 or 2 off gigs, so that we can make it a more accessible model for them. A really important aspect of Disguise for me is how we expand our training and make it more accessible and free for new users. So this year we embarked on a new roadshow where we took our training and took master classes to new countries, new cities, new markets to reach new people. And we want to grow the user base. We want to work alongside the industry and our partners to grow that user base. And one of the reasons I personally joined Disguise was alignment with my values around the sense of belonging, and we are working really hard to cultivate a diverse and inclusive working culture at our company. But that's not all. I feel like Steve Jobs moment. And one more thing. I'm really excited to announce that in partnership with many of you in this room and with Laura's kind guidance, we're introducing now the Disguise Accelerator Grant. And we're going to be building upon the new talent program you heard about earlier and launching next year a grant for 2 individuals, one in the US and one in the UK, from the new talent program to help specifically emerging underrepresented talent gain additional training, mentorship, and hands-on industry experience. So what does that mean? So the 2 folks we identify will get complimentary training, hands-on training from us in their nearest major city. They'll get a free X1 dongle or Designer Pro license of their choosing for a year. They'll get a technical, creative, or business mentor depending on their career path of interest from us. And what I'm really excited about is we're going to work with Frameworks Network, maybe some of you in this room, to get a practical paid working experience that Disguise will fund for 1 week. So these students can get a practical experience working on a project using Disguise. And you'll meet them next year because we're going to bring them along as our guests to the 2026 Framework Conference. So really, what I think will set organizations apart is realizing we can't just plan for the future, it has arrived. We need to embrace this generation, this change now, that Gen Z is really redefining how we work today and are setting new expectations, and that we really need to adapt if we're going to attract new talent, retain new talent, and evolve as an industry. And I think that companies and leaders that prioritize some of the things that the next generation are expecting and demanding, they're going to be the ones to thrive and help shape the future of live experiences. But that's just my opinion, so I'm really delighted to now be joined with 3 experts in this area, Pod Blumen, Ben Nicholson, and Elle Woodhart, if you'd like to join me. Thank you. Maybe we could start with just brief introductions so everyone can understand your role in the industry. Maybe I'll go with you first, Pod. You said you're a man of many hats, so I wanted you to do your own introduction.
Thanks, Sarah. It's great to hear about the new scheme for the men, well, for training. It's really great that you're investing in that. My name's Pod. I run a small studio in London, in the UK. We mainly work in brand, but we work in music as well, and corporate stuff, and do weird, arty, innovative stuff, as much of that stuff as we possibly can. And we love working with young people. We try and reach out to students, go to student shows, and see what people are doing. There's so much interesting work out there.
Elle, do you want to go next?
Hi, I'm Elle. I'm a recent graduate of Carnegie Mellon's video and lighting design programs. Take yours. And I'm here representing Gen Z. I've also been a part of Framework's new talent list, so I'm very grateful to everyone for this opportunity to share the young people's insights.
Hi. I was told to talk very close to the mic, so I'm going to obey. I'm Nicholson, and I teach at Miami University in Oxford, Ohio, not Florida. And I teach a lot of the things that you all bring to the table. And I also like to say I'm surrounded by 20 to 30-year-olds. In my house, I have a 24-year-old daughter and a 20-year-old son. And so I would say that I would profess to be an expert, but then that would be arrogant. I try to listen a lot and try to understand. So.
Thank you. Well, I think it would be great to start with Elle as a recent graduate and someone who's trying to break into this industry. How well do you think the current pathways into the industry have prepared you for the realities of a job in live events and production? Oh, sorry.
So I've recently graduated, and I think one big aspect of my education is it was very traditional. So moving into an industry that is moving so quickly in terms of technical development, it's a bit intimidating to look at so many skilled people, look at so many amazing projects, and think, how do I get my foot into the door? So I've graduated, and thanks to meeting people, speaking, and learning with professionals, I've learned that I have so much more to learn before I can even approach these industries. I'm currently spending the year learning new software, learning new programs, learning about these new pathways that are possible. And what I'm most excited for is mentorship opportunities, and that's really what I'm looking for. That hands-on learning is invaluable. I'm not going to learn how to put on a large-scale event from books, from the internet, or whatever. It's really from the professionals that do it. So that's what's the most valuable, in my opinion.
And you mentioned to me when we were speaking before that you've noticed a massive drop in those types of opportunities post-COVID. Do you want to elaborate on that?
I was really lucky in school to have sort of resources on possible mentorships to apply for, possible internships to apply for, and I was very eager and 19, and I don't know a lot about the industry yet, so I'm clicking through all the links. And most of the pages have not been updated since 2020 or 2021. So, and speaking to a lot of young people moving into the theater industry or the live entertainment industry, there are opportunities, but there are less, and it seems more competitive of an environment from peer to peer. So we're all kind of reaching towards the same things. And I think that's why Framework has been so beneficial to me in terms of learning about what's even out there in the world and building a non-competitive peer community for me.
Pod, as an employer and a business owner, does that resonate with you? How are you ensuring these opportunities might exist for new people coming into their careers? Is that something you think about, or you've had to deprioritize because of the realities of the economy and the industry post-COVID?
I don't really understand the question.
So Ella is saying that there's less opportunities for mentorship and practical experience coming out of school for new students. Is that something that you open up within your own world, within your own business, or is that something you've had to also think about scaling back?
I think it's a real challenge. I think that most of the students that we encounter coming out of the technical training schools don't have all the skills that we need. They've not been trained to use media servers properly. They've been given superficial training, and the ones that have been really dedicated and learn on their own, taught themselves, have got up to a certain level of skill. But it's that balance between putting them in critical situations where they don't have the experience and the troubleshooting experience, but also the experience of working under enormous pressure and understanding that it's not just about the technical aspects of being able to program, which, as far as I'm concerned, in this industry, technical knowledge is about 20% of the skills that you need. What you really need to be able to do is to communicate, to get on with people, to be able to understand when, prioritize and decide what things really need to be done and what don't. And I think those are the skills that are really difficult to understand, and that then connects back to the new generation of people. How do we create an environment where those sorts of people who have not had that critical experience in big show situations, how can, one, they become inducted into that, but also how can we change our industry to accommodate a new way of thinking?
I definitely want to dive into that, but I think it would be remiss of me not to go to Ben on the comment about students coming out prepared. What's your take on how you balance getting the right practical skills in the hands of your students?
Well, I'm answering, looking at my colleague here from NYU, and part of it is you have to give them, I go against the grain sometimes at my university because I have to balance between traditional practice, so video theory versus I'm going to teach you how to hook up a media server. And unfortunately, there's costs involved with the equipment, right? And so there's only so far you can go with theory, and you have to have the gear and you have to have the knowledge. And so that's why this community is really valuable to me, because I can come and meet folks and understand what else is new, and I can bring that back to the university and back to the students. At a very core level, what I see at the university is a gap in actually understanding basic computing, because we have a generation that has devices that just do it. You're like, do the thing I want you to do, and then it doesn't do the thing you want it to do, and then you have to understand why. And so we've actually gone back with our program, which is a part of a gaming program, and gone back to go like file structures and systems and things, and having to reinforce that, and then going through all the pixel things as well. And so it is a very, very tight window that I have with students who are engaged, which is about 2 years, like juniors and seniors traditionally, this third and fourth year students, and trying to jam as much into their toolkit as I can. There's the human side that Pod spoke of as well, but I think the has died. Hello, there it is. But I do think that there is, what I'm excited about, what Disguise is investing in, is these experiences where you can kick them out of the university and put them into a pressure situation so that they can understand and troubleshoot in that environment. That to all of us, I think, is where we've learned the most, is how do you behave in that? How do I dig into a problem? How do I research it quickly? And who do I call to get help?
So I want to come back to your point around how the industry needs to change, because we're talking about high-pressure environments. And I remember when I first started at Disguise, I met a partner who said, "You're not really part of this industry until you've lugged media servers in a muddy field in the rain at 2 a.m." I was like, oh, well, that sounds awful. Is that the reality? Is that always going to be the reality? Or how, given what we're hearing about the demands of the next generation, how do we change?
I don't know how we're going to change, but I wanna hear ideas from Elle and from other people about how we change. You know, I already heard someone earlier on talk about pulling a 48-hour shift as if that's some sort of badge of honor. And that's how it used to be. It's almost a kind of macho thing, people comparing how long shows they pulled. And I don't want to work in an industry like that. I think it's outdated. If pilots talked about pulling 48-hour shifts, we wouldn't get into aeroplanes. I know this is slightly less critical because people hopefully don't die on our shows, but I think that there are aspects of our industry that need to change, where taking care of people comes first.
Does that resonate with you, Elle? Is that what you would be hoping for in a workplace environment?
Well, I think as a young person entering the industry, there's a very strong conflict between, do you enter the industry as the person with the expectations that you want, like a safe workplace, normal working hours, etc., or to get a foot in the door, do you conform to how the industry's been? Do you get a leg up? Because then you can enter and say, I've done the legwork, I've pulled the hours, I can prove myself through these more traditional ways, even if it doesn't align with my current values. So I think there is this disconnect in culture and this cultural conflict, I suppose, between values and the existing industry. And those two things have to be balanced in order for someone to break in, I suppose. The culture issue is an interesting one because young people entering the industry, we don't really have the power to change that, do we? Can we enter a workplace as an assistant or as an apprentice and say, we need to change how everything is? I wonder whether the issue or the solution is to connect and have dialogues like this with people who do have the ability to change things on an institutional level. I think that's really beneficial and powerful.
Really well said. Ben, you sit in an education institution. I know you do lots of projects and you've been in the industry a long time. Do you think Ella's right? Do you think it's going to take champions like yourself and others in this room to make that change?
Yeah, I think what I encourage my students is that to have their ethical and I don't know, relational point of view in line before they enter the workplace, because I always encourage them, you're going to, if you're good, and there's testimony in this room, if you're good and you're hungry, you're going to be put in a position of leadership faster than you think is going to happen. And so you have to really have kind of like what you value the most, right? So for me, kindness and humility, that's the thing I try to keep pushing on them in terms of the values they want to bring, that they're good listeners and they don't act presumptuous and think that they own the world when they show up. I think that is that's really essential. But that cultural thing it's tricky because there's the workplace, but then there's also production, right? Where it's like I go on a show and I meet you for the first time and I'm like, I'm sizing you up instantly, right? And so I like what my other colleague likes to ask, Nick Rivero, and he says, you know, how I try to enter situations and say, how can I help? You know, how can I help? How can I get involved? How can I learn? And try to get lower instead of higher is something that we try to do with our students, with my students. But I think that at a basic one-to-one level is where it begins, right? Is that how do you conduct yourself and how do you have those conversations individually?
Thank you. And Pod, I know something near and dear to your heart and you've been very passionate about is the need for greater diversity and different voices in our industry. Do you see a change happening or do you still think it's lip service around diversity?
I see a small change, but I don't think I see enough of a change. I don't think it's at a pace that it needs to be yet. I think there's a lot of things that can be done to encourage more voices. And I think it's also really important to think about how much any environment or industry benefits by having a diversity of voices. It benefits everybody. And I think that's something we need to think about in an industry, in our industry, yeah.
And I think it's interesting that I think oftentimes we talk about diversity in terms of gender or ethnicity, but actually, are we now also talking about generational diversity?
Generational diversity, but also neurodiversity, all economic diversity, educational diversity, every single type of variation of people that exist. I think I would like to see more. I would like to see in our industry. And I think when you think about how that can extend to things like inclusion and accessibility riders, nowadays on crew catering, it's normal to see that there'll be people who are vegetarian or vegan. People are being accommodated in that way. But what about accessibility riders where we know there's a certain number of neurodiverse people on the crew who need spaces where they can go to that is completely quiet? Once every maybe once every 6 hours as part of their shift, so that they can reset, or whatever the needs of that individual may be. Why can't we provide that?
We have a few more minutes. I want to open it up for questions. Any questions in the room for any of our panelists? Sorry, forgot the mic detail. That would...
Thank you. Sorry. No, this is really a great discussion. I'm glad we're having it. One piece that I think we definitely should not lose sight of is the difference. I'm 52 years old, so when I got into this industry, it was through things like internships, things working for very little to nothing, and it was much more achievable in the 90s and early 2000s than this generation has to deal with as far as affordability. If you look, student debt is outrageous. What students have to deal with housing, it's far worse. And I was able to live on nothing back then, but looking at it now, I don't know how kids do it now. And I think that's something that we need to really, the paradigm of what things used to be with the intern, with the, bringing someone on for nothing, working their way up, it's not sustainable for this generation because they are dealing with economic realities that we didn't have to deal with. So I think that's something as an industry we need to reconsider and change that paradigm because, You know, we desperately need their energy, we desperately need their point of view, and the talent I see out there is, you know, it's essential to keep our industry vibrant, you know?
I think that's a fantastic point. Thank you. I think do you want to respond to that, Ben?
I had a quick build on that. I wanted to loop this same thing into the neurodivergent thing. So there's something, as a person that sees the throughput of humans all the time, I have to always recalibrate and remind myself of neurodivergency, number one, especially within the coding, and I would call it I'm a nerd, the nerdier things, and how beautiful the human mind is, and keeping an open mind about who you're willing to employ and who you're willing to engage with and how you engage them. I think that was a great thing that Pod said. Like, that's a huge one. And another one is we make a lot of assumptions about college graduates, about their economic stability. And what I can tell you is there's a lot of students that would never tell you the situation that they're in terms of like actual basic needs like food and things like that. So as you start to onboard them into your crews and different things like that, have conversations that help you understand what their actual living situation is. Yeah.
Thank you. I saw another hand up. Oh, a couple hands.
Thank you. I just wanted to bring out one aspect that I think is important, and that's what's transpired over the past 10 years in terms of centers of our business opening up in places like Lidditz Production Park in the UK, and the work that they've done in terms of either working with accredited colleges or creating their own programs where they bring young people in a working environment on these campuses. And from what I've seen, it's been very, very successful because the students have not only access to the latest technology and the people that use that technology, but also they have access to part-time jobs. So they can get paid while they learn. And I think that as these centers proliferate, Nashville is opening up soon, if they are successful in partnering with accredited universities and colleges, it provides a very productive way for young people to come into the business, be exposed to the many different, the great variety of jobs and careers that are there, whether it's coding or whether it's climbing a truss. And I think that's something that has been a very positive aspect that's been created over the past 10 years.
Yeah, that's amazing. I wasn't aware of the extent of that at Lidditz, but that's really great to hear. And there was one further. Oh, yes, of course.
So I've employed a few people from the what's now called Live Academy in Production Park, and worked with quite a lot of the freelancers that have come out of there. It's good, but there's still quite a lot of work to go with them. So I think that there's quite a lot of input from this conversation that can go into that educational establishment.
I think we had one more we might have two more questions. I think if we have time at the front.
Hello, check. Okay. Something that y'all were talking about is kind of how do we kind of set up our work environments for success for our workers in terms of, you know, making sure that they're taken care of, that we're not pulling those 48-hour shifts, right, as a badge of honor. And I think one of the places that needs to happen is before most people are in the room, and that's with the client, you know, whoever that is, and setting those expectations of, hey, this is how long we're working, this is what's going to happen. What do you kind of think that conversation starts to look like for, you know, someone who's industry experienced, who's in that room with the client? What kinds of things can we start saying and doing to set client expectations such that work environments get better and get healthier?
Something that I would encourage is, and I teach project management, and one of the things I talk about is expectation management. So one of the thing that came to mind was including the client on part of the journey. So if you got a crew that's got a couple green people, like, just acknowledge it so that they don't turn to somebody who they don't necessarily know where they fit into it. And proper introductions, I think, go a really long way. And making sure, or if you've got, a crew of green folks that have not been on a job before, and then you have a really strong project lead, making sure that things are getting funneled through the points of strength. That's what came to mind when you answered that.
Any other ideas?
I think accessibility and inclusion riders is a way you can say, give them a rundown of your crew and any particular needs or sensitivities. Yeah, as part of the documentation, part of the risk assessment. Yeah.
I think we have time for one more question.
Is this on? It's on, great. Just want to riff off that a little bit. I'm coming into the area where I'm on the client side. And I think one thing that is difficult for a lot of younger folks is the lack of transparency around how these companies are structured, what these roles mean, what hierarchy means. And so if there is an artifact we could create that helps us educate as leaders within these organizations to then go back to our C-suite and educate, but also educate the students so that they know where to apply, how to talk about their skills, how they fit into the grand framework of everything. Because I spend years of my career just training people on just what is a designer, what is a technical person, what is a creative director, and how do you talk to them? And that is education that is wholly missing across the design spectrum, regardless if it's tech or branding.
Thanks, Jenny. Is that a responsibility of educators and employers to help prepare people in their careers to navigate that? What do you guys think?
I think it is. Yeah. I don't think there's anything else to say.
Well, I want to affirm how useful that resource is. I think when I meet all these amazing people at Framework, it's a little embarrassing to have to go, I just graduated, I don't know what your job means, or just nod and Google it later. Something like that would be really helpful in engaging more authentically with the amazing people that I meet. I would love to know what this means before I talk to you and ask you more about your jobs. I think having a resource like that will make incoming, early career people much more thoughtful in how we approach conversations with people that we meet.
I have nothing to add to that. Can I ask Elle something, or do we have to wrap it up?
I think you can have time to ask Elle a quick question, and then we'll wrap.
Okay. I want to blow a myth away about college. It falls short every time preparing the students that you all need in industry. But something that I want, Elle, if I can get you to do it concisely, is that what you've had to do to get meaning out of your educational experience.
Well, the video design industry, the video industry as a whole, is niches on niches on niches. How do you train in a generalized program for every single thing? I really struggled with that while I was in school because I felt this conflict of understanding the education I was getting and understanding its mismatch with a new, emerging, very fast-moving industry. To bridge that gap, I learned how to learn things on my own. I learned how to be really resilient. I learned how to deal with frustration. So the gap is where I developed most of my soft skills that I'm bringing into the industry. Maybe I can't say, I animated this really, really amazing thing. Here, look at it. It's a little bit harder to describe the soft skills that I've learned from that mismatch, but they're there. And I think everyone approaches that differently. So yeah, ask new college graduates.
I think there's a type of learning, and I'm not an educator, so I don't know, but there's a definition of a particular type of learning which is all about learning when you're on the job, that you're taught to teach yourself specific skills because it's impossible to teach anybody everything. So I think that's what you're talking about, Elle, isn't it? And I think in our industry where things move so quickly, both creative possibilities and technical innovation, that being taught how to teach yourself is a very, very important and empowering skill.
I think we have to end it there. I just want to thank my panelists, and let's continue this dialogue.